be sure to like and share that as well with your friends and family. Now, if you want to call in to tell us what's on your plate today, it is 452-3046. That's our main number here, 452-3046. And you can also reach us via WhatsApp. That number, 724-0008. Message in, call in if you like on WhatsApp. Again, that number, 724-0008. Now, we want to send out some birthday greetings for today, the 24th of January. First to Fran Solomon, happy birthday to you, and wishing you an absolutely wonderful birthday celebration. And also to Mr. Sergio Joseph, happy birthday to you, and we're wishing you a wonderful birthday. Look back in time to some history on this day. Well, back in the 41 AD, Claudius succeeded his nephew Caligula as Roman emperor, as the latter's assassination occurred by officers of the Praetorian Guard. In the year 1848, gold was discovered in California, and that was by a gentleman by the name of James Marshall in Sutter's Mill in Coloma, California. 1857, on this day, the University of Calcutta was founded as the first full-fledged university in South Asia. 1899, on this day, rubber heel for boots or shoes was patented by an American, Humphrey O'Sullivan. And in 1908, on this day, Lieutenant General Robert Baden-Powell published the book Scouting for Boys as a manual for self-instruction in outdoor skills and self-improvement. And that became the inspiration of the Scout movement. We now head to our dish of the day. The daily dish is brought with the kind compliments of our good friends at Tiles Plus.
One tiles for your home, I see. Bathroom, kitchen, pantry. Need tiles for your balcony. Come down to Tiles Plus, satisfaction guarantee. Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus. Because with unbeatable cost. Customer service, A+, need all kind of tiles. Come down to Tiles Plus. We also got gasware and vanity. Books, doors, you'll see. Come down to my nobody. They got the best tiles on island. Trust me. We are located Land Street in Castries, Bossy Joe Lake, and Flag Street in Beaufort. Telephone number 453-7939. Tiles Plus.
Serving now, the Daily Dish.
And welcome back to our program for today. And of course, it's a bit of an overcast and rainy day here in St. Lucia. So, of course, please be careful. Exercise caution on the roads. And, of course, that appeal is also coming from the Royal St. Lucia Police Force. And they, of course, are out and about in full force thanks to the augmentation of what used to be the traffic department of the RSLPF, and it's been augmented thanks to some new officers, 78 new recruits, and certainly we're seeing a lot of their presence, at least in the streets of Castries and in other traffic stops and checks around the island. And certainly that is important from an economic perspective as well. Whereas they are trying to tackle the matter of traffic congestion, I'm not too sure how well that is going. Of course, we're seeing quite a lot of congestion in the city of Castries, but the impacts on the matter of insurance premiums has certainly come into focus of late, and that is because of the number of crashes and accidents that we've been witnessing. And in fact, the police quite recently made an appeal to drivers to exercise more caution on the roads and to be a bit more sensitive towards the importance of life and limb of not just yourself but other individuals. And it is a very important plea, given the fact, according to the transport department, within the Ministry of Infrastructure, somewhere in the region of 96,000 vehicles registered on island. And that is certainly a pretty astounding figure for a country with a population of about, what, 72,000? And so we really are talking about more than one vehicle per person now. Well, sorry, not quite, but um, it's not quite that, but we're talking about somewhere in the region of, yeah, maybe 55, 50, well, how should I express this? 0.55 vehicles per person. It's still a pretty significant number, and certainly more than one vehicle per household in St. Lucia. And of course, I know that means effectively that some households have more than one vehicle as a result of that. And and so this is really causing a challenge in terms of traffic management, of course, in terms of the capacity of our roads to be able to handle this rise. And of course, many will be asking, what are the solutions? Are the solutions to build more roads? So yes, you do need to consider widening roads where there is certainly a lot of demand and congestion, but there is a limit to which that can be done within our circumstances, because of course that costs the cost of land acquisition. In many instances, of course, there isn't sufficient right of way to fully widen and add on additional lanes. And so it is a major undertaking when that is taken on. Sometimes hear people float the idea that, well, if that's the case, we can just build up. And effectively suggesting that you can somehow create viaducts and that will be the solution to the problem. Well, not exactly, because and certainly viaducts also cost a bit more money to in fact construct. Effectively, what viaducts are is that you're building bridges. You're building bridges that are continuing for a very, very long distance. And of course, in our situation where we are in an earthquake-prone zone, they have to be built to withstand seismic activity, and it it does mean that those are very expensive undertakings. So it's not that simple, and it certainly means, however, that a significant amount of resources has to be considered when looking at this reality. But the other problem, of course, that we're facing are the insurance premiums. And just today, I noted somebody in the know, putting out a number suggesting that in the year 2023, the indications was that there was a payout in terms of claims for related to vehicles and accidents, somewhere in the region of over $90 million in a year. Now that's significant when you think about the size of our country and that amount of money that has to be put out related to accidents. And it's a pretty astounding figure in that regard. So certainly we've got to be thinking about trying to keep safe on our roads, especially on, of course, rainy, wet days when the roads can be a little bit more slippery. Now, of course, we are into the throes of the Nobel Laureate Festival. And last night, there was, in fact, the Sir William Arthur Lewis Memorial Lecture that is put on every year by the Sir Arthur Lewis Community College. Has been happening, I think, since 1994 or thereabouts. And of course, it is an opportunity for the country to perhaps, look at where things are at economically, and to potentially look at um, recipes, approaches, measures that many countries around the world are looking at in terms of economic growth and development. Now, that lecture was actually delivered by Dr. Clarence Henry, and he also lectures, I think, at the South Louis Community College or at UE, and also works with the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States. And quite a bit of it was, in fact, looking at the correlations between happiness and, or rather, what I should perhaps say, the happiness index and that of economic growth and the state of one's economy and how productive the economy is. And of course, this concept of a happiness index has been around for some time. And you recall maybe countries like Bhutan in particular was very much keen on the whole idea of not measuring things solely on the basis of GDP, right? The idea that the extent of economic activity in a country in a year is important, but it is not the sum total of what would certainly impact individuals and ensure that they, in fact, can be content, they can be satisfied, they can be happy about their lives and their existence. And so there have been attempts to be able to do that over the years. We've seen things like the Human Development Report, which has been published many, many times over the years. We've seen other attempts to things like that measure multidimensional aspects of things like poverty to get a sense as to where countries are at relative to each other and how they in fact are faring. And that was largely the focus of yesterday's last night's presentation, looking at the whole matter of happiness, that happiness index, and seeing who's performing well, who's not performing well, and how small island developing states are doing in that regard. Now, of course, small island developing states is again one of these other groupings that we hear about, particularly within the context of climate change and sustainable development, but not, of course, not solely within that area. And so we are considered a small island developing state, of course, and one can very well appreciate that, considering that, again, we only have 238 square miles and 172,000 people. But of course, it goes beyond countries like ours. And so there are, even within the mix, members, which are not even quite countries, of small island developing states, I should say. But like, for example, Guyana, because of its long-standing association within the Caribbean, Belize as well, albeit they are actually continental countries, they're not islands. The nature of how those countries exist kind of seems as if they're almost isolated to some degree. And so they are quite often grouped within this whole idea of small island developing states. And in fact, by far, most small island developing states are, in fact, in the Caribbean, followed by the Pacific. And so, of course, over in the Pacific, you have the likes of the Solomon Islands and Tonga, Vanuatu, Nauru, Kiribati, islands like Fiji, the Marshall Islands, as well as those which are not even independent. You've got the likes of American Samoa, like French Polynesia, and those that are somewhat under uh, the protection, so to speak, or influence of countries like Australia and New Zealand. They also um, exert an influence within that Pacific region, and so there are some of those countries, and then also in the Indian Ocean and in Africa, and to some degree as well, um, to some degree Asia also. And so, of course, in the Indian Ocean, notably the Seychelles and the Maldives and Mauritius, as well as Comoros, find themselves in the Indian Ocean. There are a few in Africa, Sao Tome and Principe, Cabo Verde. Um, but interesting enough, the only one in Asia which gets mentioned and quite often gets a lot of attention is that of Singapore. And of course, we've heard it before. Singapore, back in the 1960s, was no better off than Jamaica in terms of where it was economically, in terms of GDP. One could even say it was, to some degree, even less developed than Jamaica, and so it is quite often used as a reference point because, of course, it has experienced tremendous economic growth to the point where it is now a developed country. It is, in very, very, very many ways, the wealthiest country in the world. Of course, it's in competition with the likes of Qatar, as well as Luxembourg and maybe Norway. In terms of the highest GDP per capita in the world. It is a country that, of course, has quite often been compared with, we compare ourselves to, because at one point in time, it was almost the exact same size of St. Lucia, about 238 square miles, roughly 616 square kilometers. And it no longer is that because they've actually done a tremendous amount of land reclamation. So, in fact, the land area of Singapore, in fact, has increased. I think they're closer to about 700 square kilometers now. Now, it's quite often that country that is held up as, this is what a small island developing state should be like. And of course, the experiences of Singapore, following some of the prescriptions of Sir William Arthur Lewis, are always and quite regularly, referenced. But of course, Singapore is certainly vastly different in terms of how it operates. And to some degree, one can say Singapore is a bit more of almost like a special development area within a massive continent. And it's certainly perhaps more akin to the way Hong Kong exists with respect to China. And I could say that because it really was part of this British Federation created of Malaya, which eventually broke off out of. But effectively, it's a stone's throw away from Malaysia, right? And that, of course, has meant that it is a very, very special country to the extent right now, in fact, that Malaysia and Singapore are actually looking at creating a sort of a special zone just north of Singapore in Malaysia as a point of opportunity for the expansion of Singapore and Singaporean business. And so I think it's called Juro Economic Zone or what have you. And that concept then is that, it's got space to expand to some degree. Now, they've, of course, done quite a lot to maximize their land. So you got a country of about the size of St. Lucia, 5 million people. And of course, it has meant that they've had to build up significantly in terms of high rises and a lot of focus on housing, apartment style housing has been really important for their growth and development. But of course, again, it finds itself in a pretty unique region and a pretty geographically significant area, that of the Malaccan Straits, which is this channel within which a lot of the world's trade heading between China, Japan, and heading towards the west, heading towards whether it's India or the Middle East, and then Europe, that has to pass through this area, and so it has been able to position itself as a really important transshipment and manufacturing hub as a result of that. And then, of course, they've been able to diversify the economy from the gains and savings that they realized in industrialization, then being able to invest in lots of other pursuits. So it's now being able to get into financial services. It's a significant financial services hub for the world. It is seen as a very stable democracy, and so that has certainly encouraged a lot of investment. And it has also then begun leveraging its position in Asia to become not just a hub for products and goods, but also for people. And it's got one of the best airports in the world as a result of that, Changi, which of course was very strategically developed to be a stopover point for these very long trips, which quite often characterize trips to Asia and Australasia. And so it is somewhat interesting when we see these comparisons, of course, with respect to Singapore, because certainly there is a lot more to that story than simply looking at a small island developing state that has been able to grow in that way. And so the circumstances are somewhat different, and there are certainly some very unique advantages that it did in fact have. But in fairness, of course, to them, they were able to develop those advantages very, very well. We unfortunately are already at the point where we need to take our break. And so that's our dish of the day. We'll take in our weather report at this time.
This has been The Daily Dish.
One tiles for your home, I see. Bathroom, kitchen, pantry. Need tiles for your balcony. Come down to Tiles Plus, satisfaction guarantee. Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus. Big tiles with unbeatable cost. Customer service, A+. This all kind of tiles. Come down to Tiles Plus. We also got gasway and vanity. Boss, you'll see. Come down to mind nobody. We got the best tiles on island. Trust me. We are located Land Street in Castries, Bosses Grocery Lakes, and Flag Street in Beaufort. Telephone number 453-7939.
Island style, yeah. We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, yeah. We'll have to make the right choice. Island style. We got the time that will make you happy. Island style. Oh yeah. We make your dream come alive. In Island style.
We have tiles and king sets, pieces and ground. Everything you need is on the house out. For the best price and the latest style. Take a little drive down to Island Style car.
We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, quality, price, service, choice. It's all an Island Style.
Visit us at our showrooms in Bellarosa, Rodney Bay, on the John Compton Highway, Castries, and behind Ruby's Gas Station on the Library Viewfort Highway. So call us on 450-452 or 453-TILE. Island Style, Tile and Bath. When you think tile, think Island Style.
This is Radio Caribbean International. It's now time for the weather news.
Well, of course, on 1.1 is now time for your weather report as of 12 noon today, presented by Island Style Talent Bell. The forecast for St. Lucia Valley for the next 24 hours, winds will be blowing from the east in the air 22 miles per hour. 45 kilometers per hour with occasional gusts. Weather partly cloudy to cloudy and breezy with light to moderate scattered showers. And there is advisory in here which reads small craft operators and sea beavers are advised to exercise caution. And that should be exercise extreme caution due to brisk winds and locally rough seas. The forecast for Los Angeles, partly cloudy to cloudy and breezy with scattered showers over the Windward Islands. Elsewhere, fair to partly cloudy with a few light showers. And the weather summary, brisk, moderate to brisk easterly winds and locally rough seas are expected to continue over and around the Eastern Caribbean region during the next few days. Moist and unstable conditions in the lower atmosphere over the central Los Angeles will produce cloudiness with scattered showers over that area during the forecast period. And this was the weather report as of 12 noon today, presented by Island Style Talent Bar.
This has been RCI's Weather News. For more information, call the Weather Hotline at 454-3452. RCI 101 number 1.
Island Style. We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, we'll have to make the right choice. Island Style. We got the time that will make you happy. Island Style. Oh yeah. We make your dream come alive in Island Style.
We have tiles and thin sets, mixes and grout. Everything you need is on the house out. For the best price and the latest style. Take a little drive down to Island Style car.
We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, quality, price, service, choice. It's all an Island Style.
Visit us at our showrooms in Belarus and Rodney Bay on the John Crompton Highway, Cass Street, and behind Ruby's Gas Station on the Library Viewfort Highway. So call us on 450-452 or 453-TILE. Island Style, Tile and Bath. When you think tile, think Island Style.
And welcome back to our program here at the Lunchroom on Radio Caribbean International. Of course, we were discussing yesterday's Sir William Arthur Lewis lecture delivered by Dr. Clarence Henry and the lessons for small island developing states, looking at the whole issue of happiness and the happiness index. Of course, we'll get to back to that in just a bit. Right now, if you're so interested, there's actually a Nobel laureate writers spotlight book and a literary fair going on at the Sir Arthur Lewis Community College up on the Mon, and that library there is the Hunter J. Francois Library. They're putting on this event, and I believe there are a number of authors, St. Lucian authors, who are giving different talks on their books and of course these include individuals like Mr. Robert Lee, Sylvester Closell, Savannah John, Mr. McDonald Dixon, Miss Ashna Bino, Mr. Cletus Springer. In fact, Mr. Springer is probably giving his address right now. The others mentioned would have already given their talks. And also later on in the day, Anthony Averill, Kendall Hippolyte, Jane King Hippolyte, Dawn French, Dr. Anderson Reynolds, and the feature address is being given by Dr. Didicus Jules, the OACS Director General, this afternoon at around 5 o'clock. We're taking some calls at this time as well. Good afternoon and welcome to the lunchroom. What's on your plate today? Hi, good afternoon, caller. How are you doing?
Fine, thank you. I'm thinking you're talking to Arthur Lewis, I suppose that's economics and what I'm talking about. According to something I heard concerning money, it is said that for the universal health care that The former government would have been given like $75,000 towards the universal health care per person. That's what they would be getting in order to have the universal health care going. But then, what I'm saying, the estimate for our budget every year is about 1 billion and some, few $1 million.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're going to give up, they're going to give a budget up. They're going to give 75,000.
Mm-hmm.
I would not. I would say maybe to about a hundred
It's about.
thousand. I'm not even putting the whole 180. I would
Oh,
just
you
put,
want me to put in the one?
I'll just put a 100,000. Now,
Mm-hmm.
as I use my friend Google, Google send me 75,000 by 100,000 is 7 billion
Mm-hmm.
500 million.
Mm-hmm.
Would we be able to do that?
Oh, that's a great question, caller. And you've done the math, and I think you've solved the answer to that question. That clearly, St. Lucia's budget is not more than it's not even $2 billion yet. Has
No,
never
just
been. We've never
one.
gone beyond that, and so where would that possibly be able to be
And at
sourced
the rates
from?
of ailments and sickness is
Not
another
not
estimate.
also
Yeah,
another point that should probably be made too is that when you consider the total economic activity in the country's GDP, it's
yeah,
somewhere around $6 billion.
yeah.
So even as a percentage of GDP, that is going to be over 100%
Yeah.
of GDP. So that is not something that is obviously ever going to be sustainable.
Mm-hmm.
The concept though, and this is the idea, is that it's an insurance, and so you would never, in fact, have to put out that amount of money, right, for
Yes.
each individual. So that's the idea.
Yeah.
But the point is, the insurance still has the aspects of premiums, right? So
Yes.
the
Very
question is,
much.
who's going to be paying the premiums? What are the rates going to be? It's got to come from somewhere, right? At the end of the day, funding of healthcare has to be sourced from the economy, and so
Mm-hmm.
the question is, how much can we realistically afford?
Yes.
I think, and again, when remember there was this whole period going way back when the NIC was looking at the matter, when Ms. Emma Hippolyte was the director there. There was a Universal Health Care Committee and looking at financing. And from what I recall from Dr. Stephen King, who had
Yeah, I
in
remember
fact
all
been
that.
part
Yes.
of that committee, basically they were saying that you would need about $100 million additional funding per year,
Mm-hmm.
right, to be able to take on universal health care,
Yeah.
right? So effectively, the country needs to figure out how it can come up with this $100 million more. Now, already, we are seeing some of the impacts of an expanded healthcare system,
Yes.
because we have the OKEU, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Originally, I believe when it was Victoria Hospital, the budget was somewhere around 35 million, right?
Yeah.
And then they made that move across the transfer to OKEU, and they found, of course, that the costs are significantly higher, right? Because you've got to be maintaining a bigger facility. You've also got, and not just a bigger facility, but at a higher standard
Yeah.
as well, because people are expecting to get better services, and so that's why the cost of we've been running the hospital at a deficit for, and this was why the government had to come in with this $16 million to effectively just try to pay down
Yes. All that
on
was
some of
old.
the old, yes, what was owed,
Yes. A lot.
the liabilities of the hospital. So if it needs to be able to move forward now, there's a significant amount of money. There's a gap that has to be found to be able to ensure that the hospital can, in fact, function to a level and a standard that I think people would be more pleased about. And that's just one institution. Remember, we got to be thinking about St. Jude and a new St. Jude coming on stream.
And soon the
Right?
new Soufre hospital that's supposed to be built.
Oh boy. Well,
Yeah,
yeah, that's a
it's
whole other
going
one,
on.
right?
Yes, yeah.
So, and that's a big question. Can you actually afford a third facility? So, and then of course you've got to also maintain and manage your polyclinics and ensure that your primary healthcare system is also functioning. So it's therefore there are a lot of actions that have to be taken, and very importantly, how do you take preemptive or preventative action, to reduce the overall health burden? Because right now we have got a significant health burden, right? The number of people who are suffering from non-communicable
Yeah.
diseases, and quite often more than one issue. So they might be, both diabetic and hypertensive, or they might be,
And there's so
hypertensive
much.
and have COPD, and so you're dealing with more than one issue to manage at the same time. It becomes more complex. It's means people have the costs end up going up. So that's really where now there has to be a lot of effort to say, how do you get a healthier society?
Yeah.
And it's not it's we can never afford the kind of healthcare that is being put out in the developed world at this point,
But even in some
unless
of the
we
developed world, they cannot even meet it because in the United States, they themselves have serious problem when it comes to funding all those things.
yeah. And so then and some of the major aspects, that's just the infrastructure. But the other big challenge that we actually have is on the human resource side of things. And so, as these countries they themselves are trying to improve on their healthcare, and they have the money to put out there, they can pay higher salaries, and that, of course, attracts nurses and doctors who want to be able to, I suppose, afford greater luxuries. And so, many people are, in fact, many healthcare professionals in the Caribbean are obviously attracted to
To go
the
into those
possibility of
places.
working in North America
Yeah,
and
because
Europe.
of
So
the finance.
it is certainly a big challenge in that regard. My take is that at this point in time, we cannot possibly be training enough um, nurses and healthcare professionals, because there's going to be this continuous attrition, which is going to happen invariably. And so it's difficult. And of course, it's one thing to have somebody who's perhaps just out of school with their MBBS, and then it's a whole lot more difficult to keep specialists who are in high demand everywhere around the world. So
And you need that.
definitely,
I
definitely.
don't know when the people think there's those big fancy dreams, if there's really consult the people that in them know before they just spew those things out there. Because when you see those things, health alone takes so much. Right now, not if, OKE, you don't even have an MRI machine. I
Hmm.
suppose again, finance, not being able to afford it yet, as I said, all of those things. So when you're pushing that, giving people this hope that they would be getting that, they'd be doing a lot better.
Well,
So I
I
don't.
think there was an attempt. There was actually an MRI, and then seems as if it's got issues, technical
Oh,
issues. Yeah,
it was not maintained.
wasn't
Or
properly maintained. Yeah,
okay,
yeah, yeah. So remember, a lot of
because
these things were part of the overall plan, but then you've got
yes,
to be able to actually
and rushing
maintain
into the
them.
hospital without the proper planning was, I suppose, all of that was. And another serious thing I find is that I'm hearing certain people saying that the police, the police would so much was given to the police before compared to what is happening now. And I don't know how these people can be spewing this again, just saying what was being given so much to the police for the past 5 years that was given. I wasn't hearing vehicles and all of those things. All I was hearing was Cinderella balls.
Oh, Lord, caller.
to make things.
uh,
It's,
well, the boss. Yeah, yeah. I mean, that is. I'm not sure. It's always hard to quantify some of these things and what is actually being given when, and um, yeah. But of course, um, what I can say is that there is certainly a fair bit that is actually happening now in terms of
yes,
equipment to the police and expanding the
because right now
CCTV and
even drones, they do have and all of this thing.
yeah. Well,
I
let's
mean,
hope.
just
Well, and it comes back to the next thing too. Let's hope that they actually are using them effectively. Yeah,
yeah.
because sometimes we end up with situations where the country goes out and they pay for a particular technology and it's not applied. It's not
But
actually
but
used.
from what people are saying, because I think just the day before yesterday, a guy was shot right by the his constituency council for trying to rob somebody, but he was shot in the leg.
Hmm.
So you can see that they're on the ball, they're working. But the only other thing I noticed was that last night in the news, all the equipment that was brought to Main Philip Park, I
Yes.
think that was, is there no security there?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I
I
think yeah, there was
mean,
some work that going on the Marsha
yes.
grounds for the
High-powered machines, also those things were taken, and
hmm
nobody saw
hmm
anything, taking things out of a container there. I mean, if all of those things there, where were the securities? And when they city cameras and all of those things, nobody in the areas saw people taking things, because taking these things would have caused some kind of noise or something. But you see, people have time go with
hmm
so many of those things.
and you can see why, of course, in even small projects, perhaps, or relatively small projects, the costs will go up because
Yes,
then a contractor now is going to be thinking, well, boy, depending on the area that I'm working in, I'm going to
yes,
have security, right? I'm going
yes.
to have nighttime security for so as to who is to blame in this one, I don't know, but I mean, obviously the criminals are to blame to take it, but then also, I think we'll have to see how
But then,
contractors can consider
but if
ensuring that
all
they
those
have
things that should
suitable
have been
security.
properly secured, how is it that if all of those things that no one was there? Come on, even before they had those things, they had security. They Trotine and them used to have people that I true they used to still break into the place. But right now we're doing all of that work because lots of money, 80 million was for just to do those the park and all of the other
Mm-hmm.
parks, and for someone to go there and not some people to go in there and sing and nobody can say anything. I'm hoping that some camera caught the people and they able to get those things. But because come on, although the guys say they will still continue with what they have, but that should never be. That should never be. Wouldn't it, again, with the police patrolling that area?
Well, I mean, police patrolling is not guaranteed to be able to. I mean,
Yeah,
police. I mean, there's a Marshall police station, and
right.
which has to patrol
Mm-hmm.
a pretty large area, all right. But so they can't necessarily be just positioned there. But if I think that's a big question then in terms of how the contractors approach some of these projects that they will certainly have to consider
And I'm sure somebody,
having
people
security.
saw and they know. Again, this is in a community. The park actually belongs to to you all in the community there.
Hmm.
So you all should be protecting that too. If it
And
is at the
one
end of the
wonders where they're going to sell this equipment, right? Hmm. Let's see, because I'm sure some of your specialist equipment, they I don't know exactly
where they'll
what
sell it.
they sold and who they're going to sell it to,
Always,
but
maybe they might send it to St. Vincent or somewhere. So,
you never know,
no,
caller.
not down here. They might send it to St. Vincent.
You're correct. You never know where
Yeah.
they're going to find a buyer.
Okay, take care.
All
Have a
right.
nice weekend.
Thanks very much. Same to you. Have a good one. And of course, that is one of the many challenges that we're facing as a small island developing state, the issue of crime and this idea that perhaps everything is for sale and individuals, unfortunately, not respecting people's property, and we've seen the issue of vehicle robberies as well. So the police certainly have a very, very difficult, a lot on their plates to handle. And of course, we as citizens also have to think about the security of our property, and that's a very, very serious matter. And of course, the importance of how the community can perhaps get involved in terms of community watches and vigilance in that regard. Of course, a lot of people are investing in CCTV, and that's certainly a very good step in the right direction. And so let's see how that continues to pan out. But just to come back to the author's talk, as I mentioned, this evening, Dr. Didicus Jules is going to be giving his discourse, and this is happening at 5 o'clock this evening, all as part of the activities for the Nobel Laureate Festival 2025. Now, coming back to the matter of happiness, and we were talking about that happiness index. When you look at the top country in the list, it actually is that of Finland. And in fact, the majority of the countries on the top of the list of that happiness index are, in fact, countries that are found in Scandinavia, you could say in Europe, in Northern Europe, the likes of Norway, Iceland. They seem to be the ones dominating that list. And then, of course, you then have to ask, well, what exactly is the happiness index looking at? And it's looking at not just GDP. So your GDP is important, yes, and it does factor in, it does weigh into it. But they're also looking at the matter of social safety, social support, and how that is available to citizens. Now, of course, those countries in particular do, in fact, although they have very high taxes, they do, in fact, ensure that support in terms of healthcare, in terms of education, in terms of housing, and social welfare, unemployment support and benefits. There is this pool or net which is available to ensure that everybody has some core benefits, as well as ensuring that everybody can live there's this basic standard that everybody can enjoy. And that, of course, is really important in terms of equity in a society. And so perhaps that's another area that one has to look at, how equitable our society is structured. And that's a very important one. The other some major other issues that are considered in looking at this matter of happiness is how much freedom you have, how much freedom of choice do you have. Is it a situation where individuals are very limited in what they can do, in what they can perhaps wear, in where they can go? And that, of course, is a major one. In some countries, of course, there are significant restrictions for women. There are restrictions in terms of movement. And interestingly enough, as another study I was looking at yesterday, I was looking at travel, and again, where do people travel the most? Not where they go to the most, but where do people, from what country do people, what country travels the most? What country moves around the most, both internally and from in their country, as well as externally, the aggregate of that. And in fact, interestingly enough, Finland again is top of that list, right? And they say that the Finns take the most vacation, the most trips Um, I think it's about 7 per year or something per person. And the majority of it is, in fact, within their own country, yes, but maybe going to another city or going on a fishing trip or going on some sort of expedition, whatever it is. But they in fact travel a good bit, and so that freedom to be able to do that is a pretty important consideration that one has to also look at. How able are people to be able to move around, to be able to enjoy their world, to enjoy their country? That's a really important aspect to look at in terms of um, happiness, one can say. So it's interesting that some of these things align in such ways. But of course, there's a lot more to consider in terms of happiness. And so definitely want to, given the fact that Dr. Henry did in fact bring it up quite a bit in his lecture yesterday, definitely want to take a good look at that matter in the coming week. Just a quick one. Michael Bloomberg, you know him as a billionaire, uh, pretty active. One point, even wanted to run for president. And he, in fact, just a couple days ago, you recall that the Donald Trump presidency announced that it was going to withdraw from the Paris Climate Agreement, that World United Nations framework for the Convention on Climate Change. And Mr. Michael Bloomberg has said that he will step in and, in fact, fund or continue to fund, in fact, the efforts in terms of international climate contributions. And certainly a very welcome gesture, considering the stinginess of Mr. Trump in this regard. And it, of course, it certainly will raise some questions as to the extent of philanthropy of many of these individuals who are billionaires, the very, very wealthy, particularly in the United States, and how much they are, in fact, giving back. Of course, you got some pretty famous ones who have been giving quite a bit over the years. Warren Buffett, I think, is the top of the list in terms of generosity. He's been certainly giving quite a bit back, as well as Bill Gates, and through his Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And so there are some who are certainly helping out in terms of global causes. Some of the new kids, though, on the block, they perhaps need to dig into their pockets a bit more to be able to support the efforts of global development. That's our program for today here at the Lunchroom, and we do hope that you can join us again next week, God willing, for another one. I'm your host, Carlos George Jr., saying goodbye.